This is more of a debunking than a truly scary story.
Okay.
This is The Lady in Black. The legend is that a woman dressed entirely in black 1920s mourner's attire is seen nightly wandering through the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. And this woman carries 2 red roses in her hands as she walks the same path every time towards the same grave every time. And she places the roses at the grave, pauses, bows her head, and then disappears. And if any stupid idiot has the courage to go up to her, they get glared at by 2 devilish red eyes through the blackness of her veil.
Oh, thank you.
A few times, people have gone over to the roses that she left after she disappeared to try to get a souvenir, only to have the roses jump up at their faces and gash at them with their thorns. And the grave that this woman is visiting is of Rudolph Valentino. Now, arguably America's first true, like, scandalous and excessive movie star, who kind of set the model for everything we think of a movie star is. He was the first big movie hunk, really. And he was supposedly poisoned by a jealous lover for having cheated on her with another woman. Some say the Lady in Black may be this killer trying to atone for what she did, but there's a lot of theories about who the woman is. Now, that's the only scary part.
Okay.
It's not scary anymore.
Oh, make it scary.
Let's have the true story. So Rudolph Valentino was born, get ready for this, Rodolfo Alfonso Raffaello Piero Filiberto Guglielmi di Valentino d'Antoguolo in Castellaneta, Italy on May 6, 1895.
That's his whole name?
Yeah, 1895 is his family name. So after his dad died and he was rejected from the Italian Naval Academy for his physical frailness, he went on to get an agricultural science degree in a college near Genoa. But after, just a leisurely visit to Paris, he fell in love with the glamour and the lifestyle that goes along with that city. Yeah. He took up a cosmopolitan way of life, and he began dancing. His mom sent him money to come back home to Italy. He used it all to gamble, and he lost it all. So he came home as an embarrassment. Everyone on his way home from France to Italy was just pointing at him.
All in, whatever that means.
He left at age 18 to go to America. Where the money he was given to, get himself started in the country, he used to upgrade to a first-class cabin. So when he got to New York, he had no money again. So he started working various odd jobs, supposedly prostituting himself to women and men, until one night at a club he was taught the hot new dance that was sweeping the nation, which was the tango. So knowing the tango, combined with his exotic looks, he started getting gigs to dance at really upscale clubs where he was able to latch himself to the other top talents that were performing in these places also. He even performed for Woodrow Wilson in one of these places.
The president.
He couldn't help himself, and he got involved with a really rich but really unhappily married Chilean heiress. He went on as her gardener because he had his agricultural science degree, and it's safe to assume that they had an affair. And when the heiress finally divorced her husband, Valentino was called on to testify in court to show the husband's infidelities. After the divorce, the husband, who was really well connected, had Valentino arrested on vice charges. And this made him an outcast from all the upscale clubs he was working at, and they loved being in so much. So to make matters worse, the Chilean heiress decided, I want to shoot him. So she shot her now ex-husband, and Valentino didn't want anything to do with this. So in
first smart move.
So he spent all of his money, and in 1917 he went west with a theater troupe, where he was convinced to try his hand at the newly born film industry. So he started auditioning for movies, and he kept dancing, and he kept dating more wealthy heiresses, until 1921 he got a role in The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, where he broke the studio's habit of casting only milk-fed, pale-skinned looking people, and milk faces, and they so in favor of his swarthy Mediterranean, olive guzzling looks. And then the same year, he starred in a movie that would turn him into the icon that he became, which was The Sheik, where he plays an Arab sheik who kidnaps a British woman and sort of rapes her, and then they fall in love. He was so charming and exotic in it that it tapped into the whole forbidden fruit aspect of all these dark Europeans that started coming into the country at the time. All the moviegoers fell in love with him. Some women even fainted at the screenings of the movies, and then a train came at them on the screen and they all ran away. One reporter even asked him if he thought that a white woman would ever fall for a savage like the one he played in the movie. And he answered that people are not savages because they have dark skins. So this performance led to the way that, when people see like a wealthy Arabic man dressed in a similar way to how he was on screen, they assume he's a sheik automatically. It also started the whole Middle Eastern trend that had a noticeable impact on the buildings that were built around this time and also on the fashion that people were tending to favor. The song The Sheik of Araby was about this character. Chic condoms were made with a silhouette of Valentino on them. So Valentino had a few failed marriages in his life. One was to a lady who turned out to be a lesbian. And another that he got in a lot of legal trouble in because he married her while he was still technically married to the first one. So he was arrested for bigamy.
But she was a lesbian. It doesn't count, Your Honor.
Gay marriage is illegal. There were also rumors that Valentino himself was secretly gay. His cultural impact was so tangible that tough guy men all over the country were furious with him because he was the catalyst for what was probably America's first metrosexual movement. He was very pretty. So men in different newspapers kept tearing him apart for making everything in the country effeminate. There was this whole thing like some guy saw like a pink soap dispenser in a men's room, and he was like, Valentino! and he wrote some op-ed about him. Valentino was so furious about this, he challenged these people to a boxing match because they were all writing anonymously, and he said, if you're so manly, come and box me and we'll see who's more manly. Valentino's party habits caught up with him very quickly, and he developed a serious ulcer condition, but he kept on living a really lush lifestyle with a lot of parties and substance abuse until he was found in his hotel crippled by pain and spitting up blood, and he was rushed to the hospital where they found out that he had multiple ulcers and a burst appendix. So they did surgery immediately, but it didn't stop the pain, and he couldn't eat. And after a few days, an infection that was inside of him spread, and he died on August 23rd, 1926.
August. Augustusku? Does it all come back to him?
So he died August 23rd. He was 31 years old. So remember that he was as popular at the time that he died as all of the Beatles wrapped into one, only Italian. And he was called the Great Lover, and he was referred to as catnip to women. So when he died, there had been so many fans waiting outside the hospital to see if he was okay, that when the news eventually broke out to the crowd that he was dead, the police had to call for backup to keep them from storming the hospital. In the crowd, also, a few women attempted to commit suicide. And then a couple days later, an actress in London was found dead in her apartment, surrounded by pictures of Valentino. And a couple months later, this 20-year-old mother in New York poisoned herself and shot herself twice, saying, I'm coming to you, Valentino. But she survived, and she was immediately sent to an asylum. So between 80 and 100,000 people visited the church that his funeral was in. An airplane flew over the funeral and dropped rose petals all over the crowd, with the thorns still in it. It was rumored that they used a wax replica of his body in the church because they were afraid of his fans would literally come up and rip him to pieces.
Catnip.
It was not unjustified because some people at the ceremony tried to storm the church as well. His fans loved storming.
It was a new craze at the time.
They had just learned what storming was.
You mean I could stampede as a human being and call it something else that makes it seem like I'm not a dirty animal?
All this storming started a fight with the police that took 150 cops to stop. Christ. Now this is where the lady in black comes in.
Okay.
So on every anniversary of his death, a woman dressed entirely in black mourner's attire would go straight to Valentino's grave, lay down a few roses, say a prayer at his grave, and then leave. And nobody knew who this was. And then in the early 1940s, the press took notice, and they ran a story about this mysterious woman. And then a woman named Marion Watson came forward and said that she was the woman in black and that Valentino had proposed to her the night before he was hospitalized. And then another woman came forward saying that she was the woman in black and that she was secretly married to Valentino. And then another one came forward saying, well, we secretly had a kid. And then one came forward saying, my mom was Valentino's great unrequited love. And then another one came forward saying, I am Spartacus. This kept going on until the true Lady in Black was fed up with all these imposters, and she finally came forward in 1947. And her name was Deetra Flame. And her story was that as a young girl, she got really sick and she was put into the hospital. And Valentino, who was a friend of her mom, Deetra being a fan of Valentino, he came to the hospital to try to cheer her up. So he brought a pair of roses to her bedside and he was talking to her. And she was saying to him that she was afraid that she was going to die. But he said to her, you're not going to die at all. You're going to outlive me by many years. But if I die before you, you please come and stay by me because I don't want to be alone. Not long after that, he did die, and Deetra brought roses to his grave every year until 1954, by which point his death anniversary had become just a really tacky spectacle. And she was just one of many ladies in black that was coming to visit every year.
Was there a reason why she was shrouded in black when she did it?
Because, I mean, she had respect for
That doesn't make sense to me.
I don't understand the concept. In 1977, she started visiting again, but now she was in regular clothes, and she continued doing this until she died in 1984, and her grave now reads Lady in Black. But now, every year, you yourself,
Me?
come on down to Los Angeles, California, and you can go to the Valentino Memorial Service. They have it every August 23rd at 12:10 p.m., which was the time that he died, where a whole gaggle of men and women dressed in black, they gather at his grave, they tell old stories, they watch old clips of his, they play music. But despite knowing all this truth, people still insist that a woman in black is still wandering every night through the cemetery with these roses. But even if that isn't true, there's plenty of ghosts in that cemetery, including Valentino himself. And Valentino, he had some potent spirit because his dog also haunts the pet cemetery in Calabasas,
Where the
Menendezes would spend their time.
My family every year does the Day of the Dead altar there at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and walking around, there's always a big thing happening at Rudolph Valentino's little site. It's amazing.